So framing. Today we're going to talk about framing. I'm Lee Payton in Da Nang, Vietnam. I'm joined by my co-host Reese Harris. Yeah.
It's a big one,
Yeah.
and there's loads of books on this and other resources, and a lot of people aren't really. I mean, that people are aware of it, but not through the frame of framing. Like they don't. Maybe people don't know what that specific term is, but it is essentially how we look at things in its most simplistic form. Anything like things that happen throughout your day, things that are happening in the business, how you look at the future, how you look at yourself. It's perception, right?
Yeah. No, it's funny because I got up this morning and my mornings all start the same. Or like the night before, I'm like, I got my checklist of things I want to do. I'm organized. I'm actually excited to start my day. And then I get up in the morning, and this is like kind of internal to me. I've had anxiety issues my whole life. I mean, nothing that I can't manage, but it's always there. And like I have all these things I need to do. And then I always freeze up. Like I can't get started. Now, once I get started, totally fine. Like I could just roll right through a project. So I get up in the morning and I'm like, I don't want to get started. And you know this because I'll be like, hey man, I'm working on something over here. I'm just not doing my client work. And it's like being able to frame things instead of looking at things like, I don't want to do this. It's client work. I'd rather do the fun stuff. And being able to frame it, just as simple as this client work I'm going to do today or this project I have to finish today is going to allow me, it's going to give me more money and allow me to do other things, being able to frame it like that. But even in its more simple form, somebody told me once, I heard in a podcast, that it's like, let's say your legs hurt. Well, if your legs hurt because they're injured, it's the same pain usually as if you were just doing a bunch of deadlifts or working out. But usually if you're like if you have muscle pain or whatever from working out, like you're happy about it, like you got a good workout in. But if it's from like some injury or whatever, even though it's the same pain, it's you like think about it totally different. So it's just as simple as that. It's just taking whatever you have to do or whatever situation comes your way and trying to reframe it into something that's doable. It doesn't sound so miserable. And of course, this is way easier said than done. And I spend my entire day going through this mental battle of like, oh shit, I got to sit down and do some social media ads or something, or something that I don't want to do. And it's just, just trying to keep reinforcing and tricking your mind into making, a bad situation into a good one or however you have to go with it,
It is easier said than done, and also it's hard to realize, but I think everything can be reframed, like even like really like negative bias. So I think one of the reasons we tend to see some situations as bad straight away, I'm talking about in the context of like business, and it does apply to other things, is that we have a negative bias. We always look at what's the negative side. And so when you're mindful of the fact you can reframe, you just have to be conscious of it, i.e. not on autopilot. So if something does happen in the moment, understand and prepare yourself for the fact that your brain is probably going to go to the most negative perception of what's just happened. When you're aware that that's the automatic, you can kind of override it by realizing, okay, cool, this is how my brain is automatically framing it, but I'm going to reframe it to be this.
Right.
You have a bunch of work that's just been thrown at you. You're working in an agency or any company, and a bunch of work's just been thrown on your desk. One, you have to do it. So like you can't get out of it, so you're going to have to do it. You can either look at it and be like, fuck my life, I have to now spend the next 3 hours doing this, which means all the other stuff I had to do is going to get pushed and delayed, and there's consequence, and then be in a bad mood about it. Or realize, cool, I have to do this. What is the benefit or the positive that's going to come out of it? I get it all done really well with a smile on my face. My boss is happy, my manager's happy, the client's happy. I learn in the process. So is there actually anything I could have done myself? Could I have taken responsibility in some way to actually prevent that from happening in the first place, or help the organization avoid this happening, because there is things you can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's not like you're right when you said the work is the work. We can't get out of it, you know. So I know this is silly. This is something that I even started, when I was a kid. I'm sure most people go through this too. So I fucking hated school and I hated homework and everything. It's not going to go away, So your two options are, be miserable while you're doing it, or try to at least enjoy it a little bit while you're doing it. So, and again, I know these things are super easier said than done, but really just being mindful in the moment, even if that comes down to, like, with me, with just the way I get anxious about things where I don't want to get started. I just take my day. Shit, I don't even look 8 hours ahead. That's just too much for me. Like, I'll think like, okay, I got to do this much within the next hour, and then X amount. And then I'm watching my little Pomodoro timer on the computer. I only have to make it 45 minutes. And then I get to take a break and walk around and listen to a podcast or something. So, but again, you can really take your workload and turn it into a good day or a bad day or a really bad day. It's like when I went to leave Florida and I wasn't sure what type of job I was going to do. I knew I wanted to get into writing because at the time, and still is, a great job, copywriting. I didn't know what else I could do remotely. I'm not very artistic or anything like that. So I thought, well, I'll try this copywriting thing out. And it just, I still, of course, to this day, have imposter syndrome. It doesn't matter now. I think I'm up to, back to talking about me again, I'm up to like 180 projects or something like that. I still, every time I hit submit on something or hit send on an email, I'm like, oh, that totally sucked. It's never happened that way. I've never been fired from something. Maybe later today, I don't know. But I had those, like, to get started, I had to overcome a lot of the limiting beliefs, like just having to reframe, like, this is exciting. This is a new job, other than, I don't know what I'm doing. This is going to suck. I'm going to screw it up. Just having a little bit of positive mindset getting into it. And I had the tools in place to open and run a business, but I didn't know anything about writing or what I was, getting into, all the stuff that I do to make money now. So again, the going into all that and starting all that was really scary, and it could have been a lot more miserable. And quite honestly, had I not reframed it to be a positive, exciting experience, I probably would have given up a couple of months in, not having the mindset to say, hey, look, you got rejected for, and this happened a lot, it still does. I get turned down for jobs and proposals, or just don't hear back from people. And instead of taking that as like, oh man, I totally suck, it's just an opportunity to get a little bit better. You could really wrap your mind around and go down that really dark, negative hole. And this goes for anything, not just writing. It goes for any type of job. You could really get screwed up if you look at everything in a negative light, and I'm failing at this. Nobody's getting back to me. Even now, I put out 10 emails or 10 proposals and maybe hear back from, well, out of 100, maybe hear back from one. I could take that as a sign of failure right now. I've got a lot of clients right now and a lot of work. But again, it's just all how you look at things, and that's that whole limiting belief in the beginning, starting off. And even now, like every single day, it's a constant battle. So,
yeah. And you're, that example of like sending out proposals and then not getting them, like the reframe is, you're learning how to deal with rejection.
right.
And it's an important thing to handle, because throughout life, in all aspects, everyone's going to get rejected in some way, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, not getting a job, not getting the client. Like, it's going to happen. So you might as well, you can either be kind of unprepared, because for sure at the start of this journey, both of us would have been like unprepared, like expecting maybe success quite quickly, and then realizing, oh fuck, it's actually going to take a bit longer.
Yeah.
But you framed and realized, well, now I can handle rejection. Now, when I want to go get new clients, I know I'm going to get rejected. I don't care. It's like, great. Give me the rejections. Give me the reasons why I didn't want to, because that's going to power and fuel the successful ones, because I know how I need to adjust the proposal. It's like, it goes back to the other episode. You either win or you learn. And I think that's super important. We wrote down a few like limiting beliefs, negative frames, which I think are really good for people watching. The first one, I don't have the skills or knowledge to start my own business. So one, everyone has some skills, and you may not realize they're skills that could be in demand. So the alternative could be, okay, I don't maybe have the skills and knowledge to start a business in an area, but perhaps I do have skills and knowledge to start my business in one area. And then, I don't have the skills and knowledge to start my own business. If you don't at all, it's like, okay, I don't have the skills and knowledge to start my own business, but I have the ability to learn skills and take on new knowledge that I can use to start my own business. So do you see what I mean? It's like the initial belief is like, it's hopeless. I can't do anything. It's actually like, no, well, what can you do right now? If you can't do something right now, you don't focus on the fact that you don't have the skills right now. You focus on the fact that you have an ability to learn the skills. So that's the stage you're at, and that's what you focus on, which is more positive because it's something you can do.
Yeah, and it stuff all compounds too. And I'm not going to repeat myself here, but it's hard you can't compare yourself to somebody else's middle or end. I know I say that all the time, but it's so true. It's like, you look around, especially these days with social media, you look at Instagram or anything else, not to call that one out particularly, but you see all these successful people. Well, they're the ones that made it, that are looking back now, So of course, if you go around and you look at like, oh, I can't do everything that this guy did or whatever. When's the last time all these authors and famous people and the podcasters that we listen to and then that we admire, first of all, none of them have a story where they just breezed right into it. I mean, they all failed dozens of times. The next point here is you need a lot of money to start a business. Well, that's just not true in 2023. Case in point, the stuff we're doing now, we're on a free streaming service, StreamYard, shout out with a little duck there in the corner, if anybody can see it. We're obviously on the free version. We're using Adobe Voice Enhancer. I won't go through all the platforms, but we essentially started all this with, yeah, 20, 30 bucks a month. We're up and running here. So nowadays you just don't need the brick and mortar. You have a cheap, crappy laptop to start off with, so the money and the financial thing isn't an issue. You can make your own logo in Canva if you really want to. You don't need a website. All those things that apply to starting an online business are totally out the window now. Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to cover, this was something I learned from a podcast on fitness, and there was a few coaches, elite level coaches in the sport of CrossFit, and they were talking about how important language is, especially like self-talk, and they were reframing. So the context was athletes having to do like some grueling like workouts over a season, and sometimes they would be like, oh, I have to do this workout tomorrow. And the coach's approach for them to reframe was changing the language from I have to I get to.
Sure.
So it's coming from a gratitude angle as well. It's like, I am a human being with the capabilities of doing workouts like that, or even just having actual mobility to even fucking walk. Like, I get to go and, do you know what I mean? It's like, and you could get really simplistic with it. It's like, I get to take the bins out, which is not something anyone really looks forward to or appreciates or even thinks about. It's just subconscious. But someone who's in a wheelchair, it's like, that could be a really hard task, and we think about it because we take it for granted. So consider that with work as well. And it's like, oh, I have to send 30 proposals out. It's like, no, I get to send 30 proposals out because I'm running a business, I'm traveling the world. For people that are further along, or the fact you have an internet connection in this world is also something not to take for granted.
True.
And stuff like that, I think is helpful. And it definitely, when I remember to think like that, it definitely makes me happier. I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, do you know what? I'm actually fucking happy I get to walk every day, or I'm even allowed to be on a laptop.
It's funny because even at its simplest form, like going from I have to I get to, like even now, just saying it out loud, I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. But it really does work. Like if I say that to myself, like all these little tricks, whether it's a breathing exercise or meditation or just positive talk, like sitting and speaking about it now, I'm like, oh, that's cheesy. That's not going to work for me. It does. Like it really totally does work. Just changing things in that perspective, like using it as a learning experience, getting to do things. You made a really good point. I mean, there's some people that, would love to start any type of business and can't. There are, as we all know, unfortunately, we're recording this in May of 2023. There's still a war going on in Ukraine right now. There are probably, plenty of people there that would much rather be somewhere else. So, not to take this down that road, but it could always be worse. And anybody lucky enough to have a YouTube connection, to be, I don't know, lucky to be watching this, I'm not sure about that, but lucky to be able to watch this, should at least appreciate that. But again, it's not easy, and I'll say all this now, and I'll get up tomorrow or even later after this. I'll have to go do something that I don't want to do, and I'll have to talk myself
You'll have to
into
go
it.
do something.
I'll have to do it. Yeah, I have to do a sales funnel today that I don't want to do, but I get to do it, so it's going to be fucking awesome. Yeah.
Something practical that will help, I think, is, I mean, if you're watching this, the chances are you want to run a location independent business, a one person business. Something that will help is to start getting in the habit of expecting uncertainty, and quote unquote bad situations to happen. They are inevitable. So practice, whether that's through affirmations, if you journal, but like get into the habit of expecting shit to go south, and kind of pre-programming and realizing, cool, if a bad situation happens, the first thing I'm going to do is try and reframe it straight away. It's the first action.
Yeah.
Try to build that habit. Understand that there are going to be periods of hard work, and that through those periods of hard work, this is something I sometimes realize but forgot most of the time in my old role at an agency. Now, I always wanted to be location independent, and so there were plenty of days and months where I was in the office thinking, oh, I don't want to be doing this work. But in hindsight, I realized how much I learned through that process. And in the moment, it's hard to realize. So know that you're going to go through periods that are tough, but reframe them in the moment. Don't wait till hindsight to realize, cool, this might be tough right now, but my brain is learning a lot. And in 3 months, in a year, I'm going to be very grateful that I now know the things I know. And I built the habits or built some discipline, etc. Like there's always going to be a positive angle. So start building the habit, expect stuff to go south, and practice being present and realizing and reframing in the moment, so you know that it's going to be worth it in the long term.
Yeah, and you also have to forgive yourself too for certain things. Like if you screw up, let's say, like I hate going to the store, for example. So I try to practice mindfulness whenever I can, and whenever I'm grocery shopping, I just get really angry, and it makes no sense. I mean, people don't like shopping. I get that, but I can't stand it. I'll buy M&Ms and it makes me feel better. But it doesn't mean that it has to ruin the next. If I go to the store tomorrow, you're allowed. It's like that whole, you go out drinking. So, fuck it. I might as well eat a pizza now. Things like one thing doesn't have to be a domino into the next. So if you have a bad morning, if things don't go well and you're feeling really down about what you have to do or what your goals are, you didn't reach your goals, you didn't go to the gym, that's all right. The afternoon can be better. The next day can be better than that. So it's also being mindful that you are being negative, or that, you are kind of falling into that trap, but also forgiving yourself too. Like if you have a day where you don't get shit done, but you had 10 things on your list to do, that's all right. Tomorrow's a new day. And, going back to your point about looking back on things now, it's always easy to look back on things and be grateful to where it got us today. There's so much shit in my life that I was miserable doing. And some of it was pretty miserable work, but God, it goes by so fast though. It's been a year and a half since I left Florida to do this job, the remote work copywriting full time. And at the beginning, had you told me, because this is how human brain works, if you told me, hey, man, you're going to have to work hard for a couple of years, but you'll get there, I would have been like, oh, God, 2 years. That just seems so long. And now I'm like, that went by like that, So, it, if, if something seems like insurmountable and like, like, oh God, I can't do this. I can't sit and study for 3 months or send out X amount of proposals or whatever it is you have to do to get to where you want to be. Trust me, when you get there, you look back, you be like, shit, and what's the alternative? Just lay down and do nothing. And you're right about having to shift a lot in this job. We're having to do it now with AI coming in, and it's augmenting what we're doing now. We're using it as a tool to our advantage, but I mean, we've had to reiterate our process here and our positioning a little bit with what we're doing. So I mean, you and I are faced with it every single day. Like we'll start off thinking like, all right, this is what we're going to do, and then the next day we get hit in the face with something that will totally end what we were planning on doing. And we had two choices in those scenarios. It's like, all right, what can we do to move along with this, and make our futures better and make the product better and be able to get to more people and help more people, or what do we just give up? It's like anything else. If it was really that easy to do all these things, then a ton of people would be doing it and the money wouldn't be good. There would be no money in this if anybody could just do it. And that goes for any type of remote business. So you should want to have a challenge to get here. Like you should want it to be hard to an extent, not impossible and not painful, so to speak. But you should shy away from anything that's too easy. And that goes for anything in life. We've all been in situations where it's like, like this is way too easy. Like that girl at the bar was way too easy. And then you got to go get a penicillin shot, a couple days later. You know what I mean? So like you got to shy away from things that are like, fucking too easy to do. And, I don't, we're getting off topic of framing here a little bit, but it all ties
That's not,
together.
that's not going to make the cut.
Yes, it is. Penicillin. It's it's a miracle drug. So another thing that I do I'm not like a big journaling person. Nothing against it. I think I write so much during the day and have to type so much during the day that I just don't feel like typing for myself. Stupid as that sounds. But what I found that works for me, and will work for anybody who doesn't feel like sitting in front of the computer or just writing things out. I know that they recommend you journal with a regular pen and paper, but I found that if I just go for
Do
a
they
walk
even
on,
exist anymore?
what's that?
Do they even exist anymore? Pen and paper.
I don't even know. I got my book here. I think I brought it with me that I bought when we did our first episode. Let me see if I got my kitty book. But so what I do instead, oh, I sure do. I got this motherfucker. Yeah, I got this at the store next door. Um, yeah, but what I do instead of trying to sit down and type out my thoughts, feelings, whatever it is, my brain dump, whatever you want to call it, is I'll just go for a beach walk and turn on like a free transcription software app on my phone and just walk and just talk to myself, and then I end up, out of that getting quite a few good ideas for the day, or at least I think they're good ideas. But so when we say journaling and being mindful and thinking about things and writing things out, you don't necessarily have to sit down and write. You can, just get out and talk into your phone for a while, and you'd be really surprised what would come of that. And I also noticed that if I listen to a podcast, even one that's like pretty chill, I don't really have any ideas of my own. So if I take a break during the day and kind of wander around the building, and I listen to something, and it could be like Tim Ferriss or somebody that's like a low stress podcast to listen to. But I don't come back to my computer, back to work with really any new ideas. If I listen to music or if I just have nothing, if it's just quiet, all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I just thought of something that I need to either add to the project or just make a note for something else that we might be doing later. And so I know that, everybody's inclination is like pop in a podcast, do an audiobook or something. But sometimes there is something to be said about, being in silence or just listening to music and not trying to consume information all the time.
I weirdly do both. I never listen to music when I'm out and about. If I'm doing something like work, I do it. But I never. It's always a podcast or nothing.
Yeah.
And podcasts, unless I'm really into it, I tend to wander. So I'm like
Yeah.
listening, and I'll wander because something's triggered a thought, and then I'll get ideas from that, and then usually have to like skip back because I realize, oh my god, like
Yeah.
I haven't been listening for 10 minutes, or nothing. Um, and I think probably both are quite good, but definitely things that people should try. Um, but yeah, I mean, going back to the initial point of like journaling, or what can you do to help get in the mindset of reframing in the moment, and being prepared to reframe throughout the day. Yeah, try journaling, do what you do in terms of like, you can also just dictate.
Mhm.
Um, and even like, I don't know how many times I've voice noted you, and then I've like said everything, and I'm like, I don't need to send this, so I delete it because it actually helped me. Just speaking it helped me process it. But yeah, journaling is a good approach. Practicing mindfulness, which is trying to be present, and it's important to remember that is literally all we have. Like, memories don't exist, the future doesn't exist, it's literally right now. And why that's important is those periods I mentioned, and I'm guessing you're the same, that I was in that old job and it was like the difficult days, weeks and months, because I wasn't present and reframing in the present. I wasn't I wasn't there. I was
Mhm.
just like, or I was making it negative myself. Whereas if I was reframing to realize, okay, cool, it is difficult, it's a challenge, but I know I'm going to come out good on the other side, I would have enjoyed that present, which was all I had. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't have anything else. It was just, I would have enjoyed it more. And if all we have is that present, like, why waste any of that with negative frames? Don't
Yeah.
waste it. Like, it's all like, you're either going to decide to make that present, which is your entire life in that moment, negative, or reframe it.
Yeah. I think there's also this myth that everything we do for work, because it's like the culture now, like all the influencers and everything, like, you get paid to do what you love. I'm like, well, nobody's going to fucking pay me to sit on the beach with a bottle of vodka. Nobody's going to do that. I mean, maybe somebody could get paid for that, but it's not going to be me. The way I look at it anyway, and again, this is just me, is like, I understand that if somebody pays me to do something, it's probably not going to be fun all the time. So that's another thing too that people get into. They're like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be doing what I love." Like, even me, I'll get frustrated now. Like, I wanted this. I left my old job and traveling, and I'm doing all this cool stuff. I get to sit in this weird ass room with all these hotel trophies and everything else now, in Da Nang, and it's a nice place. I mean, look at all the awards we got back here. But I'm able to do that now because I do things that suck sometimes. So like, I wanted this job, I got it, I'm doing well at it, and I understand that it's just not going to be fun all the time. So like, now when I get pissed off, I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm getting paid to do this. So like you just said, if I'm mindful about it, I'm like, not every moment's miserable. Even the moments that suck aren't nearly as bad as I think that they are. And you're right. Like, this is all we got is the present right now. So, and there's a lot of stuff that I squandered also when I was younger, working in pretty cool places that I was just miserable the whole time. I spent some time in DC at the White House when I was 18, and I didn't have any, like, I just didn't care. This is a perfect example. I was in uniform. I was in the Marine Corps at the time. So I was in uniform on my feet all goddamn day, miserable. And I would just complain. We all would. We'd all complain and be miserable about it. Not even like, look where we're at. The president's house. But no, it was just like, this sucks. I got to be on my feet. It's either too hot, too cold. And you want to talk about an experience that probably would have benefited me to be a little bit present for. So I know that's an extreme example, but man, we just waste so much of our lives, being miserable. And if your job sucks that bad and you really want to get out, there are ways out. But just having that mindfulness, and even like, I do some meditation every day now for about 20 minutes. And I look, these are things that I didn't disbelieve a couple of years ago. I just didn't really care or didn't really look into them too much. Like, I don't even need to, like, I don't fall asleep while I'm doing it or anything else. I'll just lay down for 10 to 20 minutes. And it's weird. Like, I'll pop up from that and I feel like I just slept a whole night. Like, I'm like fresh. Like, I don't know how it works. I don't really need to know how it works, but that helps with the mindfulness too. Just like taking a second, looking around, just resetting your brain a little bit. Putting the damn phone down. I mean, my God, we've only got one life, man. We've
You
got,
don't know when it ends either.
yeah,
You don't know when it ends, and I think that's a
true.
really good point. That we're obviously saying, like, if shit is tough, like, reframe it, make it good. Obviously, if you're going through like months and months at a job, you're like, if it's like genuinely like, okay, there's an issue with the job, like, we're not saying like just live forever in that job and deal with the hard times constantly. It's like, sure, you still need to have an ability to look at the bigger picture and understand, okay, well, I can reframe this every day, but if it isn't something that I want to keep doing, cool, then I need to deploy actions to get me out of the situation. We're not saying just like live a miserable life, but you're reframing it so you're happy. Like, obviously not. But it's, if you're doing what's necessary to get to where you want to be and where your future self will be grateful, and it's tough, you're reframing. This is all based on the assumption that what you're doing that is tough is going to be worth it and something that you want to do in the future. That makes sense. I think if anyone's watched this and has strategies that they've used themselves, or have more questions on stuff we haven't gone into, let us know in the comments, because we can either spin up another episode or drop into the comments and answer any questions there. But we're definitely interested in anyone that's got good strategies, because if we can all help each other, that makes sense too.
Right. And we don't have all the answers. I mean, we can only speak from what's worked for us that we've learned from other people. And like I said, it's a practice. Like you never, like, even now I get up and I'm thinking about what I have to do after we get off this call. And I'm like, shit, I don't want to do it. I stress about it and I'll start thinking about it. And so it's not like one day you wake up and you're just cured of anxiety or stress or worrying about what you're doing. It's a constant practice. You do get better though. And I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't living it. I have gotten much better. Like, I'll feel like that negativity coming on now, and I'll do my best to deflect it. Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, sometimes you just get mad, and that's just the way it's going to be. But like I said, that doesn't have to be your whole day. If you wake up in a shitty mood tomorrow and you don't get anything done on your list and you're in a bad mood and you just can't shake it, you're allowed to do that. And your afternoon could be totally different, or your next day, so that there are no rules here, but just thinking about it while it's happening will definitely help.
When you do get to the stage where you are running your own thing, like, the beauty of all of this stuff that we're talking about is that you can experiment. You have the freedom to experiment. So if you're like, I had a period of weeks where because I've got a client in New York, I was having like late calls. But what I was also doing is, the way I was structuring my day was, I was doing first drafts of emails in the morning and then like trying to finish them off throughout the day. And they were like seeping into the evening, and I was like knackered, finishing off an email for a call, getting on the call, being even more tired.
Right.
And then it was like a little cycle that was really like, making me feel like it sucked. But because I had the freedom to change that, I was like, cool, if this isn't working, I need to change it. So now I'm doing first drafts in the morning, but I'm signing all the tasks off by like 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's the most stressful work I do, because like the standard is really high. So like now it's like 1 p.m. I've done it. It's like, and I might have a few calls in the evening, but I'm like rocking up to the call. I'm like, yeah, like I've done everything. Like, for the last 6 hours, I've been doing other stuff. So yeah, that's when you get to this stage, that's the beauty of it. You have the flexibility.
Right. Being able to structure your day. Like me, I'm in this building here with the gym and the pool and 2 restaurants. And my day is my day. Now, that doesn't always work for me because I have a tendency to run off and do stupid things and like play out with computer platforms and software and toys and things. But it is nice though. Like, if there's the freedom that we have now of being able to change and not have that corporate structure where you're allowed this much for break, this is your lunchtime, these are your calls you have to do. And it goes back to what we were talking about in a previous episode, optimizing your day, whatever works best for you. I work better in the morning, and then I get a little bit of a second wind in the evening, not for like super intense thinking, but I get like a little creative when I'm trying to, plan for the week or whatever. And this lifestyle is definitely perfect for that. You can work in what your optimal work hours are. And then look, if I get fucking tired after lunch, which I do all the time, I just go lay down. All right, nobody's going to tell me I can't.
Even like I've had a few like calls like from family randomly. Don't get me wrong, like not like it's not like there aren't companies that exist to have this kind of flexibility, but it's almost impossible for a company to have this much flexibility, like in all of these things. But just one other example is like, just giving my grandmother a call and just like having a 45-minute chat at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with not feeling like, oh, I need to be back at the desk. It's like, I'm going to have this call.
It also reminds me that, so this room that I'm in now, the hotel, the little trophy room in here, I was filming a verdict video for one of my software reviews, and I had to change my shirt to like put on something more professional, like a polo shirt. And the fucking staff walked by, and I'm in here with my shirt off with the screen, like recording. It looked like I was like doing like an OnlyFans or like some weird creepy like video. They like looked at me. I'm like in here with my clothes off. I got the computer going and everything else. So the last time I was in here, I had a little incident. Nobody's crept by and looked in the windows today. So I don't know if that's good for the episode, but but it was super embarrassing though, because it was like the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m, and there's like windows. I don't know if you can see, there's like windows to the outside right here. And I'm like, I walked by and I'm like sitting here with my shirt off with the computer on with the thing recording. And they're probably thinking like, what kind of weird videos is this guy, making? He's doing those online OnlyFans things or whatever.
Yes,
So
yes.
probably a good place to stop the recording.